For years, the truth stayed hidden, the victims forgotten, the cases left cold, until science revealed what time could not. This is decades in the dark, where cold cases are brought back to light. In the late summer of 1999, a young woman was moving quietly through the small towns of eastern Wisconsin. She was vulnerable, she was alone, and she was struggling to survive. Her name was Peggy Johnson. But for more than 20 years, no one knew that. On August 21st, 1999, a passerby discovered a body in a wooded area near Two Rivers, Wisconsin. The remains were badly decomposed, partially concealed among trees and brush. There were no identifying documents, no wallet, no purse, no way to immediately tell who she was, or how she ended up there. What investigators did know was this: Peggy had been murdered. The autopsy revealed blunt force trauma to the head. She had been beaten to death. The injuries were severe, deliberate, and personal. This was not an accident. This was not exposure. Someone had attacked her with force, then left her body in the woods to be forgotten. She was classified as a Jane Doe, and for 2 decades, that's all she would be known as. But behind the scenes, there was a man who already knew exactly who she was, and exactly what he had done. In 1999, a man named Bruce Miskelly lived in Wisconsin. He had a history of violence, substance abuse, and unstable behavior. Around the time Peggy's body was discovered, Bruce told multiple people something chilling. He said he had killed a woman, not once, not in passing, but repeatedly. He described beating her to death. He described leaving her body in the woods. He described details that matched the crime scene. And yet, he was not charged. Police at the time believed Bruce's confessions were unreliable. They dismissed them as the ramblings of a troubled man seeking attention. There was no name for the victim, no missing person report they could connect to the body. Without an identity, the case stalled, and Peggy remained nameless. But the truth didn't disappear. It waited. Years later, advances in forensic genealogy would do what traditional policing could not. In 2019, DNA extracted from the remains was submitted for genetic genealogy testing. Investigators built a family tree. Slowly, carefully, they traced distant relatives. And finally, after more than 20 years, they had a name: Peggy Johnson. Peggy had grown up in Minnesota. She had struggled with mental health issues and addiction. In the years before her death, she had drifted, moving between shelters, couch surfing, sometimes living on the streets. She was not reported missing. No one was looking for her, and that made her an easy target. Once Peggy was identified, investigators went back to the beginning, and straight back to Bruce Miskelly. This time, they didn't ignore him. They listened. Bruce admitted what had happened. On the night Peggy was killed, she was with him. The two had been drinking. At some point, an argument began. What the argument was about, no one knows for sure. But what happened next is clear. Bruce became violent. He struck Peggy repeatedly in the head. The blows were forceful, uncontrolled, and fatal. This was not a single strike. This was an attack that continued until she stopped moving. When Peggy was dead, Bruce dragged her body into the woods, and he left her there. There was no attempt to call for help, no attempt to save her, no attempt to take responsibility, just abandonment. DNA identification and the corroboration of his past confessions confirmed what he had done. In 2021, more than 2 decades after Peggy's murder, he was finally charged. He later pleaded guilty to first-degree intentional homicide. For Peggy, justice came late, but it did come. What makes Peggy Johnson's case so deeply disturbing isn't just the violence of her death, it's how close the truth always was. Her killer confessed, multiple times, to multiple people. But because Peggy didn't have a name, because she didn't have someone demanding answers, her case was allowed to fade into the background. She was vulnerable, she was unseen, and for years she was dismissed. Today, Peggy Johnson is no longer a Jane Doe. She is known, she is named, and what happened to her is no longer a mystery. Her story stands as a reminder of what forensic genealogy can uncover, and what happens when victims are ignored because of who they are, or how they lived. Someone always knows. And with time, science, and persistence, the truth has a way of coming back into the light. This is Decades in the Dark, where science brings the past to light. Subscribe for more stories where justice never expires.